My name's Jacob Niedzwiecki, or Niedzwiecki, is also fine. I'm a choreographer, filmmaker, and software developer / creative technologist. So the easier way for me to say that is I work in movement and media and code. I have my own practice, which largely relates around movement and choreography, and I do a lot of work with theater and dance companies to facilitate ideas they have around ways to use technology. The project that I'm going to be showing and talking a bit about is called Jacqueries. It premiered in 2013 and was remounted in 2014 and 15. The first two instances happened in Toronto on the Ryerson campus and then as part of Summerworks on Queen West. And then we took it on tour to the Filmgate Transmedia Festival in Miami. Jacqueries was a show for 6 performers and about 20 to 30 audience members. Audience members split into small groups following performers, and then performers came together for sort of duets and ensemble scenes. The idea was really to take people through parts of a city that you don't get to see. I had been doing a lot of parkour training, and part of that ethic is interesting routes between places in urban environments. So we put together a bit of a clothesline of narrative that we could hang these scenes off of, which was sort of a heist with John le Carré elements, so sort of a political espionage heist story. And really actually, can we hit the video now? And we'll just watch a minute or two and then come back. So I'm going to narrate a bit as we go. This is our Miami tour. So we've got about 10 people standing who have followed, 5 have followed one of these performers, 5 have followed the other, and they're standing and watching this at close range. One of the elements of Jacqueries is we license and look for permission for as few of the spaces as possible. So we aim to use public spaces, and we aim to use those in a non-exclusive way. So we might be in one location for no more than 5 minutes. And if you've ever watched skateboarders or parkour tresters train, that's kind of the way they move through the landscape, is almost like grazing animals that don't want to spend too long in one location because then security shows up. One of the interesting parts of working on this show for me was from the beginning, there's a trap of site-specific performance, which is that when it's good, it engages really deeply with its site, with its location, but that means it also can't go anywhere and becomes very hard to remount or to make accessible to a wider audience. So when we were deciding on the locations for these individual scenes, we looked for spaces of common urban infrastructure. So essentially, what can we find in any city? Fire exits or fire stairwells, jersey barriers like this concrete barrier. In Miami, we used a low retaining wall, roof decks, back alleys, graffiti walls with graffiti on them. So we were really looking to find individual locations that we could reproduce in different cities in different configurations, and that worked out quite nicely. The other element that we started to appreciate more and more is that for a show that was a heist story, the process of mounting the show becomes actually pulling off a heist. So the process of scouting different locations, deciding on routes, and coordinating everybody's activities actually becomes quite similar to the story we're telling, and we sort of started to really enjoy that process. Technologically, what facilitated the show was an idea that I had, which is that this is the first site-specific work I had made, and I really wanted to be able to bring along the technology that I had access to in a theater. Sound, we can pause there actually, thanks. Sound cues, video cues, comms, like time management. We wanted to bring those along with us. And so I wrote a custom app that allowed us to cue sound, to cue on-screen video, and to cue augmented reality video in the context of this show. So at the time that I made that, I thought, oh, I would really like for other creators to be able to use this tool as well. And so I engineered the first version of the app to make that possible. In 2013, 2 weeks before our show, Apple rejected our app submission because it could enable music piracy. because queuing audio on multiple devices in a synchronous way could in theory lead to buying a song once and playing it for many people. We've heard of speakers, so I didn't quite understand why this was such a challenge. But that idea of, wow, this feels like a really useful set of capabilities that I don't want to keep to myself is actually what led to the project that Ian mentioned, Cohort, which I'll talk a little bit about at the end in like the last minute or two. Let's keep going on the video. So this is a scene where two scenes are happening simultaneously in different places. We have one scene on a rooftop, you can see in the tiny little corner there. So we have essentially two characters assembling a sniper rifle. It sounds a bit odd out of context. While two other characters are meeting at a park bench that's actually within a sight line of the roof deck. And so we were really trying to create a cinematic experience of multiple locations at the same time. Our ability to put cues on, we can pause there, our ability to put cues on the audience devices meant that they could be watching one thing live with their actual eyeballs and could be also keeping tabs on another scene happening simultaneously. And so they could sort of do their own cross-cutting back and forth. That also was really useful to cover transitions. We had sort of 1 to 3 minute walks between different locations. And so we used what's happening somewhere else right now as a way to offer the people who weren't interested in just following a performer, which I think is kind of, for a lot of people, that's a really interesting experience. For people who were more media hungry, they were able to sort of fill those walks with screen-based content, which sort of expanded the world of the show. It made it feel a lot bigger. Let's keep going on the video. I said that the show was inspired by parkour. This is one chase scene. So the audience is effectively running behind me as I beckon them to follow, and staying at ground level. The ability to have an app and to queue content through the app also helped us a lot with accessibility. So we were able to segment people with different appetites or capacities for movement into different groups. So that when I beckon that group, come on, run with me, we have to keep up. We've actually placed people in that group who are capable of that and have that appetite, have that sort of desire. And we crafted other experiences for people in wheelchairs or for older people like my dad who came and couldn't keep up with that one. I'm going to let this video keep going. This is I think the end of this video demo section, which shows a bit of how we used augmented reality. I had done a lot of projection design in the past, and so the approach was, let's take material that we might have projected onto a scrim in front of a performer and project it, essentially reproject it using augmented reality. So the performer's live in front of a real wall, but all these overlays, which were inspired by cheesy hacker movies from the 80s, are happening only on screen. And so we have a narrative beat here where the character essentially where the live performer is gathering information and collecting sort of location and appearance so they can follow this other character. We also got a nice moment at the end where we got to make them disappear. This relies on the performer having a killer deadpan because, of course, if you look without your phone, they are still standing there totally visible. Okay, I'm going to take the last minute or two of this and talk a little bit about the project that I'm working on now, which aims to make those capabilities of queuing, sound, video, flashlight on and off, vibration with the and making it possible to integrate those into theatrical experiences really easily. So the main URL, which is not going to be up on a slide, but if you are curious to hear more about this, cohort.rocks. cohort.rocks, and you can, the main get in touch link on there is through Twitter. That's my Twitter. I'm also here for the rest of the day, and you can come up to me and we can trade contact info. The idea is, as Andrew talked about at the beginning of the day, to take these tools that are useful on individual projects and find ways to continue to advance the work on them between projects so that we can, as a community, build our tools and share those with each other so that we're not starting from scratch every time we have a technologically involved idea. So currently, we've done our first open source release, which is largely existing code around being able to queue media and events on audience devices. We've had 5 different companies that have partnered with us and have actually created full productions with these with these tools. And we're heading into a stage of work where we're trying to now make the tools more broadly useful and to document them so that they're really easy to pick up and do something with. So I'll be happy to answer questions on that later, either on the panel or individually. You can come up to me. Thank you so much for your time today.
Ha 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 ha!